When I look back at the twists and turns of my life, I often wonder how something so small, like a simple couch, could lead to everything I never knew I needed. My name is Emily Carter, and this story isn't about grand gestures or fairy tale endings. It's about how love crept into my life quietly, in the most ordinary of places, until it became something extraordinary. It started the summer after I had moved into my new apartment in Portland. I had just gotten out of a long-term relationship that left me doubting whether I'd ever find love again. My ex, Daniel, and I had been together for almost 6 years. By the end, we were more like roommates than partners, and when we finally split, I was left with an empty apartment and an even emptier heart. I had scraped together enough money to afford rent, but I couldn't afford much else. My living room was practically bare, with just a rug, a coffee table that wobbled if you leaned on it, and a few unpacked boxes that I never got around to opening. I spent most of my evenings sitting on the floor, eating dinner in silence, and convincing myself that loneliness was just something I had to get used to. That all changed the day I saw a flyer in the apartment lobby. It was handwritten in neat block letters. Free couch. Good condition. 3rd floor, apartment 3B. First come, first served. My back ached from sitting on the floor night after night, so I decided to check it out. When I knocked on the door of 3B, a tall man with sandy brown hair and warm green eyes opened the door. He looked surprised to see me, but quickly broke into a friendly smile. "Hey, you're here for the couch?" he asked. I nodded, feeling a little shy. "Yeah, if it's still available." He stepped aside, motioning for me to come in. "It's yours if you want it." I'm Mark Reynolds. His apartment was simple but cozy, with framed photos on the wall and books stacked neatly on the shelves. The couch sat in the middle of the living room, a little worn but clean and comfortable looking. "It's perfect," I said, already imagining it in my own empty space. Mark grinned. "Well, perfect comes with a catch. You'll need some help getting it downstairs. It's heavier than it looks." Before I could even respond, he grabbed one end and nodded toward me. "Ready?" That was how it all began, with the two of us awkwardly maneuvering a bulky couch down a narrow staircase, laughing at our missteps, and catching our breath every few steps. At one point, I tripped on the landing, and Mark caught me before I could tumble. His hand on my arm was firm but gentle, and for a moment, our eyes met. I felt something stir inside me that I hadn't felt in a long time. We finally managed to get the couch into my apartment, both of us sweating and out of breath. I offered him a glass of water as a thank you, and he accepted, sitting on the very couch he had just given away. "Looks good here," he said, glancing around my sparsely decorated living room. "Still settling in?" "Yeah," I admitted, embarrassed at how bare everything looked. "I guess I haven't had the energy to make this place feel like home yet." Mark nodded thoughtfully. "It'll come together. Sometimes it just takes time." That night, after he left, I sat on the couch for the first time. It wasn't just comfortable, it was grounding, like it anchored me to this new chapter of my life. I didn't know then that the couch was only the beginning. Over the next few weeks, I ran into Mark often. Sometimes it was in the hallway, sometimes in the lobby when I was checking my mail, and sometimes at the little coffee shop around the corner that we both seemed to like. Each time, we exchanged a few words, and each time, I found myself looking forward to the encounters more and more. One Saturday morning, I was struggling with a bag of groceries when Mark appeared out of nowhere and offered to help. "You look like you're about to lose a dozen eggs to the sidewalk," he joked, taking half the bags from me. We carried everything upstairs together, and before I knew it, he was in my kitchen helping me put things away. It felt strangely natural, like he had been there 100 times before. "Thanks," I said, leaning against the counter. "I don't know what I would have done without you." "You probably would have managed," he said with a grin, "but it's nicer to do things together." His words lingered with me long after he left. Together. It was a word I hadn't thought about in months, not since my breakup. For so long, I had convinced myself that I was better off alone. But every time Mark smiled at me, every time he made me laugh, every time he showed up exactly when I needed a hand, I started to question that belief. One evening, a heavy rainstorm hit the city. I was curled up on the couch, listening to the sound of rain against the windows, when there was a knock at my door. It was Mark, standing there with his jacket soaked through. "Power's out in my apartment," he explained. "Mind if I crash here until it comes back?" I let him in without hesitation. We lit a few candles and sat on the couch, wrapped in blankets, sharing stories about our childhoods and our dreams. For the first time, I felt like I wasn't just filling the silence with small talk. I was opening up, and so was he. When the lights finally flickered back on hours later, neither of us moved. We just sat there, close enough that our shoulders touched, and the warmth between us felt stronger than the candlelight. Weeks turned into months, and our lives became intertwined in small but meaningful ways. He helped me hang shelves in my apartment. I cooked dinner for us on quiet Friday nights. We took walks around the neighborhood, laughing about silly things and sharing pieces of ourselves we hadn't shared with anyone else. The couch was no longer just a piece of furniture. It had become our place. The place where we laughed, where we cried, where we sat in comfortable silence. It was where I realized that Mark wasn't just a neighbor or a friend. He was becoming something more. One night, as we sat together watching an old movie, I felt an overwhelming rush of gratitude. Gratitude that he had given me the couch, gratitude that he had walked into my life, and gratitude that he had shown me what it meant to truly feel seen again. I turned to him, my heart pounding. "Mark," I whispered, "do you ever feel like this is more than just friendship?" He looked at me, his eyes soft and steady. "Every day," he said quietly. And in that moment I knew the couch had been just the beginning. What we had found together was something real, something lasting, something I never knew I needed until it was right there in front of me. Love doesn't always arrive with fireworks or grand gestures. Sometimes, it comes in the form of a neighbor with a free couch, a shared laugh in a stairwell, or a quiet night spent by candlelight. For me, it came in the form of Mark Reynolds, and he became everything I never knew I needed.